Welcome into your PFF Draft Review, powered by PFF Edge and Elite. Today it's all about the Green Bay Packers, Sam, who had maybe my favorite draft out of any team in the National Football League because they secured a first-round pick next year and still got our number 1 and number 4 corners on our draft board. So that's a great start. And the draft was so good, I liked it so much that even though they drafted a punter and a long snapper, didn't even matter. That's how good the rest of the draft was. I'm not even going to hold that against them that they went punter, long snapper combo.
If you look at how those trades worked their way out, they traded down with the New Orleans Saints, they traded back up to get their guy. You could essentially make the case that that trade netted them Jaire Alexander for a third-round pick because they still have a first round next year. In addition to their own first round next year, they got a number 1 corner for a third-round pick. They then came back and took PFF's number 1 corner, Josh Jackson, in the second round. He was a guy with a 96.6 overall grade last season, had an absolutely phenomenal year. Okay, it's a one-season wonder of grading. I know you don't like that, Steve, but
It just adds some questions. That's all it is. I mean, we went to bat for him. We called him our number 1 corner, even though some people wanted Denzel Ward. But it's one season. You have to just put that out there.
And in his defense, he's young to the position. He began life at Iowa as a wide receiver. So yes, it's only one season of production. He doesn't have the long history of showing that grade, getting better and better, and peaking as he hits the NFL level. But on the other hand, he's really young at corner. And if there are any flaws to his game, he's a pretty inexperienced guy that could potentially fix them at the next level in his natural development arc. If you look at this though is his calling card. Last season, it was what we call our playmaker index, which is just how often you're actually making a play on the ball. Forget about how often you're allowing it to be caught, the passer rating overall, how often you're actually getting your hands on the ball and breaking it up. 28.1% of his targets were either defense or intercepted in 2017. That's the highest rate of anybody in this draft class. He was also the second highest targeted corner of anybody in this draft class. So it's not like this is born of a low number of targets. This guy was relentlessly targeted and made life miserable for opposing quarterbacks, including Josh Allen when they played Wyoming, when they did target him.
Yeah, Allen was a little late to the flat for the interception by Josh Jackson in week 1. We just saw Desmond King for the Los Angeles Chargers after multiple years of really good grading in that Iowa system, step right in for the Chargers and have an excellent rookie season. So those Iowa corners, they know how to play off coverage, and they can do all sorts of different things, understand the game pretty well. We saw that a lot from Jackson on film. Going back to Jaire for a second, too, he's got the skill set to maybe cover the slot as far as his shiftiness goes. He's a little bit undersized by what we thought that the NFL wants, but I love, Sam, that they went with these shorter corners this year. These sub-6 foot guys going in the first round, and to be a first-round corner and be a sub-6 foot guy like Jaire, you have to have those movement skills and the straight-up coverage ability. And we saw that in 2016 and then 2017. He was hurt for the majority of the season, but still extremely productive. I love that the NFL kind of overcorrected things a little bit this year and went with guys like Alexander who just have excellent cover skills, not just a 6'2" guy who's just okay.
The question is, though, does he immediately get moved to the slot because he's an undersized guy? So typically the NFL just takes a look at you. If you're under 6 foot, you're going to have to move inside and cover the slot. But what we've been learning over this whole period of looking at our data translating to the NFL, it's the guys that played well in the slot in college that have the best chance of succeeding in the NFL when they're covering the slot. Jaire never really played in the slot. 13 snaps last season in an injury-shortened year, 61 snaps the year before that in the slot. So this is a guy that's, if he's going to move to the slot, will be doing it essentially for the first time as a full-time position. Their other corners, Kevin King the season before, even Tramon Williams, who they signed back this offseason, and Josh Jackson, yes, who they drafted this year, those are all longer corners. Those are all 6 foot plus guys. They're ones more built to play on the outside based on this traditional model. Jaire would be the guy with the body type under 6 foot to move inside, but we don't know if he can do that to a high level.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit riskier just because we haven't seen him do it before, but that's what the numbers are showing us. It's a little riskier, but not impossible. So I do think he has the skill set to do it. You just listed a pretty nice little cornerback depth chart there, and I do love that the Packers, just 3 years removed from trying to attack the cornerback position with multiple picks in 2015, guys like Quentin Rollins and, just all the various guys that they added in recent years, moving on and saying, all right, we have to completely revamp this back seven. We have to completely revamp our secondary. It looks much better on paper, and you add defensive coordinator Mike Pettin to the mix. He's a little bit more aggressive, play a little bit more man coverage. I think they can match up with the most versatile of receiving cores, and that's what today's NFL is all about, being able to play that man coverage no matter which types of receivers are thrown your way.
And they didn't stop with just cornerbacks, because they drafted your guy, Steve, Oren Burks, linebacker out of Vanderbilt in the 3rd round. Steve, explain to me how this is a good pick with a 41.9 overall grade.
Because he's played every type of position at Vanderbilt. I first saw him in the first game I ever did for PFF. You know, we grade every single player on every play. And the first game I ever did in 2014 when we started doing college, Temple versus Vanderbilt. He's a true freshman playing free safety, breaking on the ball, making an incredible play.
Did he play any of these positions well?
Yes, he played them all. He had some years that were okay. But he's done it all, from free safety to straight up edge rusher, and then back to traditional linebacker. And I think he showed enough as a pass rusher, and he shows enough as an athlete. He was a 90-plus percentile athlete when you factor in all of the testing. That's the type of thing that you would just want to add to your linebacker core, have him covering tight ends, have him blitzing a little bit. He's the movable chess piece. I know I said I wouldn't be using movable chess piece anymore, but that's what he is on defense. I think you just find a way to get him on the field, especially because I fell in love after that one play.
Yeah, as opposed to all those immovable chess pieces, the ones that just sit there on the board and don't go anywhere.
I don't play chess, Sam.
No, you can tell. Oren Burks, though, like you say, he's an athlete that can play in coverage. He can rush the passer. The linebackers that were already there in Green Bay, none of those guys are great on passing downs, whether it's rushing the passer, whether it's in coverage. At the very minimum, they're adding a guy there that could at least delve into both one of those two areas and be a real factor on those 3rd down situations where they haven't been that good.
Yeah, Blake Martinez, they just don't do a whole lot. No. Those linebackers in Green Bay as far as coverage downs go. The other part of why we liked this Packers draft, it's all about the pass game, stopping the pass, and moving the ball through the air. They added a whole bunch of high upside type of wide receivers, from Jamon Moore of Missouri, Marquez Valdez-Scantling out of USF, Equanimous St. Brown out of Notre Dame. Moore and St. Brown, especially big, tall guys that have pretty good speed. St. Brown, we had much higher than in the 6th round. We had him as more of a 2nd or 3rd round type of prospect. Moves extremely well for a 6'5" receiver. You just don't see that from 6'5" guys a whole lot. So love that potential addition.
That's the trend with both those guys, Jamon Moore and St. Brown. Those two guys had pretty ridiculous movement skills. Jamon Moore was another one of those really big receivers that had an absolute sick 3-cone time, Mike's favorite statistic in all of the workout numbers. So he's got some really good movement skills as well. The Packers are one of those teams that have shown they are perfectly prepared to hammer a position multiple times in the draft to get it sorted. They've done it before. Even last year, was it? A year before with running backs last year. They had multiple running backs to try and address that issue. Now we've had 2 corners, 1st and 2nd. We've come back 3 times for wide receivers to try and get better in those key areas of the game. I want to talk about one more guy, though. One more guy, because they've taken Cole Madison, a tackle out of Washington State.
Hold on, are you going to fall in love with the Washington State tackle again?
I'm going to tell you that he is a tackle, first and foremost, and that's what the Packers think he is as well. That's the big thing, because at the Senior Bowl, this guy was made to move into guard. Washington State plays this rare, hyper spread kind of college offense under Mike Leach. It's all quick passing. There's like a million slants in it. The passing sets are different than anything you're going to see in college. So consequently, those guys don't give up much pressure, the offensive linemen, because they never get the opportunity to. They're never pass blocking long enough for a guy to actually get past them and get to the quarterback. Joe Dahl, I think, was a good tackle for them in the past. Immediately got moved into guard in the NFL, where I don't think it suits what he does well. Cole Madison, I think, is the same kind of story. Isn't really your typical tackle body type, is more of a short, stocky guy, doesn't have the length, comes out of that system. So immediately the NFL projects him inside the guard, and that's where those guys struggle, because they don't have the guard skill set either. The Packers, though, are taking him. They're saying he's a tackle, a 90.3 overall grade last season. That was the 2nd rank among tackles. What's really interesting, though, is that they've got a guy in David Bakhtiari at left tackle who has a lot of those similar skill sets, is a much better pass blocker than he was a run blocker, has developed that part of his game, but he has become probably the standard now for pass blocking left tackles in the National Football League. I think Cole Madison has a shot to be, the next David Bakhtiari within that offense.
If you do look at David Bakhtiari's early years too, he was actually phenomenal. His footwork was just phenomenal and never gave out pressure to the outside or pressure to the inside. It was a lot of just bull rush type of stuff. Didn't have the power, but he developed. A lot of these Washington State guys are similar in that regard.
And that's why those guys don't survive well in a guard, because you have to deal with power an awful lot longer. But if you look at that pass blocking grade, 93.0, more than a whole grading point higher than anybody else in this draft class. Will Richardson was the next guy there at 91.7. I think he's really got a shot to stick and be a good pass blocking tackle in the NFL.
And looking at the PFF draft guide, Cole Madison allowed a pressure once every 155 pass blocking snaps to his outside shoulder. That's where most of the pressures occur in the NFL. That was 6th best in the draft class. You can find even more information in your PFF draft guide on the entire Green Bay Packers draft class. One of our favorites overall, not only for the players that they secured, but also that first-round pick from next year. That's your Green Bay Packers PFF draft review, powered by PFF Edge and Elite.